Hey everybody, Questwise here, and in this video we're going to be talking about I'm going to come out right out and say it, the awesome game of Zweihander, the RPG by Daniel Fox and Grim and Perilous Studios. Now, as a caveat to this video, I want to say that I am reviewing the digital PDF and the phone PDF that's available through DriveThruRpg. I'll put a link down below as to where I got that over in DriveThruRpg, and always remember that Questwise is an affiliate of DriveThruRpg, which means that if you use the link that I provide down below, not only are you providing the writer, the designer, the game company with a little bit of profit, you're not also only getting just an awesome game that I recommend, but they're also giving me a little bit of cutback as well too, which I in turn use to purchase games to review for you here on the channel. So Zweihander, the RPG. Zweihander, if you don't know, is a German word which means two-hander, two-handed, referring to a two-handed sword, a giant Zweihander sword. Like I said, I'm reviewing today the digital PDF as well as the mobile PDF as well. I don't own the physical copy yet, but I plan to remedy that because of this review, because of my look at this PDF. What I really appreciate about this PDF and about the mobile aspect of it as well too. And as I'll put up some pics up here to kind of reference the what I'm talking about, but everything is hyperlinked, beautiful. Like as you're going through the table of contents, everything you click on instantly takes you to that page. The mobile PDF, the phone PDF, if you will, has tabs all along the side of the page. So if you're looking for something alphabetically, you just tap on it and it takes you to those instantly. It's a really, really great aspect of the PDF, which I highly am appreciative for. A lot of times when companies will put out a PDF, especially if you're going to be using it at a table, if you're going to be using it for actual gameplay, to just scroll through the entire PDF, especially with something this big. The physical book, I think weighs in at about 600, 700 pages. I think I fuzzy on those numbers, but the PDF, at least the phone mobile PDF, tags in at 2,028 pages. It is a massive game. Now, it doesn't mean that it's super crunchy. It does have some crunch to it. What this game is an homage to the old Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay game from Games Workshop and a number of different publishing companies as far as the PDF goes. But it's very unique in its own taste. While it has that flavor, it still has that sort of homage to that original game. It does distinguish itself, and it makes itself very unique in its realm of what it's trying to do. Now, what is this game trying to do? It is emulating and it's right in the title, right? It's a grim and perilous place. It is dark. It is gritty. It is deadly. It's meant to emulate sort of that low fantasy, yet sort of on the campier side, yet dark. Campier, by that I mean that some of the artwork, some of the tropes, some of the archetypes, some of the professions are a little bit goofy. You could start your profession as a ditch digger or a rat catcher, those kinds of things. They're on a little bit on the campier side, a court jester, but with a very grim and dark sort of overtone to the entire world. The world is very deadly. It's very dirty. And I appreciate that. It really harkens back to those days of playing Warhammer Fantasy Battles on the tabletop. The idea that the Empire have these massive amounts of troops of humans, soldiers, but they're dirty. They're missing teeth. They're missing legs. Their clothes are in shambles. It's meant to emulate a very sort of grim and gritty sort of English view of fantasy. It is a D100 or percentile based system. which I have really grown to enjoy through games like Call of Cthulhu and some of the other more classic MERP, those kinds of things. This is in a very usable way. It seems very accessible. It's not overly complicated. Where this game really shines, though, where the crunch kind of comes in a little bit as well too, is in the number of choices that you have. So when you're creating a character, you choose a race and then you choose an archetype, and it's broken down into 5 or 6 categories. And then within those archetypes, there are professions that you start off in, and the professions are grouped in tiers. So you have basic, advanced, and it's basic, intermediary, and advanced. And so as you grow in your profession, and you can change professions throughout your career, you move up in those tiers. So if you want to change professions a lot and kind of gather a wide variety of skills, you're probably going to stay in that basic tier. But if you stick with a profession and follow it all the way through your career of a character, you're going to be able to achieve higher standards. Your character will be more fulfilling as a profession if you follow that straight path. But you could do it in a variety of different professions to sort of widen your skills. There are, if I counted correctly, 75 basic professions and 46 advanced professions, if I counted correctly. This gives you a huge amount of variety. It gives you a huge amount of choices that you can make for your character to make it feel very individualistic. I really like that. I really appreciate that about this game. I love grim and gritty, dark, grim, dark type settings. And while this adds a little bit of humor to the back end of it, which sort of lightens that tone a little bit, but still has this ability to keep this grim, dark feeling going on. Magic. Now, if you've watched the channel before, you know that I always, when I'm reviewing a game, especially a fantasy game, magic is one of my favorite things to look at. I love magic systems. I love playing magic using characters in games. It's just my thing. It's my personal preference. I really love magic, and I love to see the ways that different RPGs focus on magic and make it work. Now, if you've played any Warhammer Fantasy Battles or Warhammer Fantasy Role-Playing in the past, this has a little bit of similarity into it, that it has the sort of winds of magic idea. But I like the way that they've broken down magic into a variety of different styles. There's like animism and shadowmancy and necromancy and pyromancy, and there's a bunch of different sort of schools of magic, themes of magic, if you will, with a variety of spells. The other reason I like this game, and you've heard me say this before, is I love the fact that magic is dangerous. Within these winds of magic that are sort of whirling around, that magic users can sort of tap into, there are chaos influences in that as well too, and it is possible for those chaos influences to affect your character, and I love that. That's one of my favorite things about magic. I think that magic, at least in a humanocentric kind of world, when you're talking about like, you're playing an elf, maybe they're fey creatures, they're more in touch with that sort of thing. But when you're talking about humanity playing with magic, it just shouldn't be a safe bet. In my opinion, I think that magic should be dangerous. You're touching on a very taboo subject. You're delving into eldritch energies that were not meant for mankind to play with, and I like the fact that there's always an element of mystery and danger behind magic. There's also divine magic in this book as well too. You can choose there's several different gods that are all very thematically appropriate, and tap into divine magic as well too. I highly recommend this game. I highly recommend you at least checking out the PDF. If I remember correctly, it is, like I said, I'll put a link down below. I think it is $10 for the revised core rulebook. So you're going to get, if you're using the phone or your tablet or the mobile PDF, I think it's $9.99. And you're going to get over 2,000 pages of awesomeness, right? Just an amazing amount of content for you to bring to the tabletop. A lot of choices, not overly complicated, and that's what I really, really appreciate about this game as well too. Is while there is such a huge amount of stuff, talents and skills and professions and choices to make, the game rules itself are not overly complex, and they're easy enough to teach in a session. The way I like to do it is to um, have some pre-generated characters for the players, at least for the first game, to kind of get the feel of it, and then kind of give a brief overview of what the adventure is going to be like and what the characters can do, what each of the characters are, and then sort of teach the rules as you play. I think that's the best way to do this game. When it comes to a point where a roll needs to be made, a skill check needs to be made, have them, explain their rules to them at that point. And by the end of that first session, the players generally get the gist of this whole thing. And by the next session, they can either continue on playing the pre-gen character if they like them, or they're ready to sort of jump into creating their own character. To add to that, Grim and Perilous Studios also offers a player's handbook for this as well too, which is basically just the player creation section of the book, the stuff that the players might need, the general rules, excuse me, and the stuff that players would need, without all the extra fluff of what the game master needs to run the game. It makes the book considerably shorter, though it still is very, very big. I think physically in the book it's like 122 pages just for the professions alone. But I'll put a link down below for the PDF of that as well. The publisher and Daniel Fox, the writer, author, designer, also offers a supplement which adds a ton of new material called Mangaush. I believe I'm saying that right. I could be completely slaughtering it. But I'll put a link down below for that as well too. I'll be reviewing that supplement at a later time, and we'll be talking about that, what it adds to the full Zweihander game as well too. Zweihander the RPG by Grim and Perilous Studios and Daniel Fox. Highly recommend checking it out. Even in just PDF, it is a great product. Like I said, the PDF is amazingly well produced, and because of that, I'm going to be jumping in and hopefully picking up the physical copy of the book as well too. I am Questwise, and until next time, stay safe and game on, my friends.